Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, colleagues. And I'd like to send a special welcome to those of you who are watching from home in the comfort of your lounge or study or wherever. Okay, so my name is Councillor Corinna Smart, and I'm the chair of the Planning Committee. First of all, we'll start with apologies for absence. And I have those from Harleen Atwill here, Michael Dines, Shivraj Gurul, and Alan Mitchell. And declarations of interest under the Town Planning Code of Practice or any other communications from members. I imagine all of us have had emails from both of the objectors, and I don't know if anyone's had any other communications apart from those that we've witnessed on social media. Councillor Mel Collins.
Chair, for the purposes of transparency, it would be right for me to minute the fact that I've also had meetings, all of them virtual, but nevertheless I've had meetings to try and see whether there was a way forward. So I would like that minuted, please.
Thank you. Councillor Guy Lambert.
Me too. I've had a lot of discussions with a lot of people on both sides of this argument. And of course I called it in the previous version.
Okay, thank you. And I'll declare the interest that I did way back. I can't even remember when it was now. I spoke with David Bowler, I think when the first time we had something to do with the Bowls Club. I can't remember, a long time ago. So it was a beginning, as it were. Okay, so any other declarations of interest on any other items? I don't see any. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start then with planning applications for decision tonight. You should have your papers, and there is an addendum report, I hope, on your tables. Okay, so item 3, the Bowls Green and Pavilion, Gunnersbury Park, Popes Lane. That's pages 3 to 23, and on page 2 of your addendum. Okay, so I'm going to hand over now to Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just introduce the item, take you through some slides to set the context and the application. So we're in Gunnersbury Park, and the arrows in the location plan depict where the application site is, and an aerial photograph on the right-hand side. The site, I don't know if you can see that, sorry, on the screens, but the site is just dotted, outlined in black on the aerial photograph. And this is taken from the application. The bowling pavilion is in red, and the green depicted there as well. And a few more site context photographs. So the one on the left is a more recent, and you'll see the sports pavilion just to the south of that image, and an older picture of the bowling green for some context, and then some images of the site from the ground, so the pavilion, and then the picture on the right is taken from the edge of the car park at Gunnersbury. Just whiz you through some plans just to demonstrate that there is the application before you today seeks amendments to the pavilion, some extensions, as you'll see from the proposed plan on the right-hand side. And these are the elevations. And it seeks the landscaping to provide the golfing facility. So this is a deferred application. It was in front of the Planning Committee in the late January committee. It was deferred on the basis of seeking more details on the long-term plans from Gunnersbury Park, and it was felt that there was a lack of engagement on both sides to air the arguments to and for in the public forum of the Planning Committee. So it's before you again. It's a new report, so it has a new recommendation, and it's presented as such. So it doesn't have the cover letter and the old report as would be usual practice in the deferred reports. So with that, I'll leave that as the introduction, and I'll pass it back to you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so we now move to the objectors, and I'll ask Jim Storer and Val Bott to come and. You have 5 minutes between you, and you'll be warned if you're doing 2.5 minutes. You'll be warned 30 seconds before the end of your 2.5, and again 30 seconds towards the end of the whole 5 minutes. But it will be done as 2, and we'll start the actual timing when you start. So I don't know who's going to start. So it'll be you.
I'm going first.
Okay. Okay, just switch.
Okay.
That's it. So, okay, so 5 minutes, you'll have 2.5 minutes from when you start.
Yeah. I'll try not to gabble. Thanks for the opportunity to make the presentation. It's based on hours of discussion by the Friends Committee and at our AGM. Over the last decade, a 20 million regeneration scheme with every element planned for appropriateness has been implemented at Gunnersbury. But these proposals are completely incongruous in a registered park and conservation area.
Chair.
Sorry?
Yeah, I'm awfully sorry to interrupt, Val. I know it's difficult to speak in the in normal times because there is the air conditioning. Val, I'm afraid your voice is not carrying to this end of the room. And I'm
May I
very
start
sorry
again?
to interrupt.
Does that sound better, Mel? Okay. So I won't say thank you again, but over the last decade, a 20 million regeneration scheme with every element planned for appropriateness has been implemented at Gunnersbury. But these proposals are completely incongruous in a registered park and conservation area, and so ugly that the Gardens Trust, which opposes the scheme, is recommending hiding it behind a hedge if approved. Even the planning officer's report agrees, paragraph 619. We want to emphasise that this is not for a gentle pitch and putt course. It's a garish, charged-for golf-themed playground. The company's publicity for other sites suggests that its business depends not on ticket sales, but on catering and alcohol. We believe that Benugo had the sole contract for catering at Gunnersbury, so how can the CIC support this? We're seriously uncomfortable, to say the least, about the lack of any tender process in connection with bringing in this business, the failure to follow Hounslow's policy for disposing of a community asset, which led to a recommendation for refusal in January, has not been resolved. The ridiculous notion that the whole estate is a community asset, so that no procedure is needed to deal with the loss of this facility, sets a precedent. Other facilities could lose their protection, negating council policy and enabling managers to do what they wish. The poor treatment of the Bowls Club as they tried to continue here has damaged the CIC's reputation, and there's no reason why introducing putt in the park should include destroying the 1931 Bowls Green. The gentle outdoor sport of bowls has generally been seen as one for older people. This is the only facility in the park which favours this very large group, but its popularity has been growing nationally, reaching a wider, younger and more diverse audience. So we ask, why destroy it? Why not foster it? Consultation on the draft master plan for the next 20 years will take place over the summer. The centre of the estate, from the car parks down to the Potomac Lake, has been identified as a key area whose use needs a careful resolution. So this is the wrong thing in the wrong place at the wrong time and will be an obstacle to the master planning process. Finally, the construction programme is huge, with 6 months of lorries. The construction programme is huge, with 6 months of lorries and hardcore. If you approve this dreadful proposal, we ask you impose a planning condition that the company be required to fund restitution when they leave the site to make it reusable, perhaps by depositing a sum with the CIC, reviewed every 5 years to fund reinstatement. The scheme has little support and great opposition from the community, and we hope you will refuse it.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. My name is Jim Storer, and I'm speaking both on behalf of both Brentford Voice and Gunnersbury Park Bowls Club. We feel very strongly that this planning application should be refused. I At the last meeting of this committee in January, the resolution was to defer the decision to allow for the master plan for the park to be presented. The master plan's still not in the public domain, and it will be subject to a period of community consultation. We found it some sort surprising that this issue isn't addressed in the officer's report. So why should this application be refused? Well, the development plan framework remains unchanged since the two earlier cases, one on a delegated decision, another at committee. In our view, the latest officer report strives unconvincingly to justify a recommendation for approval. Para 6.8 of the report sets out the requirements where an existing community use is to be lost. In this case, these policy requirements have not been met. The officer's report 6.10 concedes that the application does not strictly meet the terms of local plan policy CI1, but goes on to say that the conversion of the clubhouse would not represent a loss of a community use. This seems to us as an extreme example of special pleading. The planning application before the committee is for a commercial venture, and it can't by any stretch of the imagination be considered as a community use. To reiterate Val's point, to permit this development would provide a precedent for similar proposals on previously developed land within Gunnersbury Park. Okay. And would be justified, again, largely through the contribution of those developments to the park's revenue stream. A little bit housing here, a few business uses there. Two final points. Financial considerations, as the committee know, are not material planning considerations. So the reference in the officer's report is really not material.
It's time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, so we now move over to members' questions for the objectors. I'm just looking. Councillor John Todd.
Yeah, thanks very much. This is a very important application. Val, I got the impression you stopped half sentence. Was there any quick point you wanted to make? It would be helpful if you indicated how many people you represent here, both of you as well.
I represent the Friends, which is about 150 people. It's relatively small, but it's a very interesting operation because when things look good for the park, we have fewer members. When things look like a major crisis, the membership shoots up. We have a hardcore of a very strong committee, and we've taken this issue to the AGM in the autumn, and there was really strong opposition from our members there.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, I mean the Bulls Club itself, when it ceased playing bowls, had a membership of about 23, something of that order. In the meantime, we've had a very low-key campaign to recruit additional members, and at the moment, I think I'm right, we're up to almost double that. I think it's 43. While Brentford Voice itself has a network of over 600 supporters, but I'd have to admit that only about 50 or 60 of those have stumped up their subscription fees, but there we are. So,
can either of you put the Garden Trust have made some very significant comments for the benefit of, I've never heard of them before. Can you put them in context as to their credibility and influence in their particular area, please?
I'm very happy to help. We have a series of national bodies which are statutory consultees on planning issues, particularly for registered parks and gardens and listed buildings. You may have heard of the Georgian Group and the Victorian Society, which are more noticeable opponents for building problems. But the Gardens Trust is the national consultee for landscapes, particularly historic landscapes. And I know that the conservation officer from the Gardens Trust has actually visited And she did ask us some questions about the history of the park and the landscape. But her letter is based, as far as I know, on her view of something which she felt was really unsuitable for a registered park within a conservation area. The Friends were also contacted by the Georgian group because they had been taken round by the chairman of the CIC, and they had a lot of additional questions. And we have now written a piece about the Georgian elements of Gunnersbury for their newsletter. So we've tried to keep people informed, but not with any sort of bias. We've not written about the put in the park for the Georgian group. We've written about the context of a historic estate.
Okay, thanks very much. You say the applicant still made no attempt to conform with LBH's Hounslow policy on the disposal of a community asset, despite this being the reason for an earlier refusal. Can you substantiate?
Sorry, Jim. Yes. I believe that the officer's report covers that, and it's as I understand the policy, it is down to the applicant to provide convincing, definitive evidence on the marketing which has been carried out. And so far as we can make out, and I understand the officer would concur with that view, that no such marketing has been carried out. In fact, it may have been, a situation where the applicant in this case was the first to come forward and grabbed an opportunity, and no others were invited to put forward other proposals for community uses.
I have two more questions. You mentioned the master plan, and I was on the committee many years ago where I saw the CIC incorporated. How important do you regard the master plan?
The master plan is absolutely crucial. One was prepared when the lottery bids were being written about 8 years ago, and it goes to 2026, which will be the centenary of Gunnersbury opening to the public. But it's clear that the work that's happened with the regeneration scheme and with the work of the CIC since it took over in 2018, there are many issues now which need resolving because 2026 is too soon now to be the end point of a strategy. There's been a fantastic exercise funded by Historic England because they think this is such an important estate. They have employed specialist consultants, and they've carried out various meetings and discussions and interviews. And we in the Friends were participants, and I'm also on the Gunnersbury Development Trust and have been a participant in these things. And I've seen a draft of the issues they want to raise with people. It is an incredibly important document when we see it, the final thing, because it's identified something nobody's said before, and that is that the central part of the park, with the historic core on the east and the field, which was Brentford's open field, which is now the sports facilities on the west, that central strip has been terribly neglected, and it's going to be the key area from the car park down past the old farm changing rooms, down to the Potomac Lake and the A4. That has got to have a resolution which is extremely sensitive. And one of the difficulties about changing the area where the bowls green is now is that it will actually decide a plot of land that ought to be part of the discussions for the master plan. And it was very clear in the public, the consultation meetings with the consultants, that they thought there were a whole series of options of what you could do there, which would have a knock-on effect on other parts of the park. And we're in a very difficult position because nobody's seen the final report yet. But it's the major document, really up to about 2040 for planning the future strategy for the park and museum.
That's very helpful. My final question is to you both. You're very patient, Chair. Clearly, you have a very strong view, and I presume the other side have another one. How much dialogue has gone on between you?
Well, I suppose it would be true. It took some time, but Councillor Lambert did eventually manage to broker a meeting between representatives of the Bowls Club, the Friends, the applicant, and the community interest company. And that meeting took place. I think it would be true to say that the result of the meeting was not definitive, not decisive, and there was not a great deal of common ground. So I'm not sure it got us much further forward. So that's, to the best of my memory, the single example of getting together and trying to thrash out a solution.
Thank you, Councillor Todd. Councillor Tony Lukey.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a few questions. Maybe some of them shouldn't really be for yourselves. Maybe for the applicant. The Bowls Club. Let me declare an interest. I inherited John Chat's, the late John Chat's bowls. And I used them once at Osterley Bowls Club before it shut down. So you mentioned that you've now got 43 members. Can you tell me when was the last time it operated? The Bowls Club operated. When did other teams come in and play you? And what efforts have been made through the sports governing body to improve the opportunities for gaining new members there and developing the club? Yeah. I've got a few more, Chair.
Yeah,
That's fine. If you take that one first, and then we'll come back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I believe that I would hasten to add, I'm not a bowler myself. I wouldn't know one side of a bowl from another, really. But I believe the last game of bowls that was played there would have been somewhere like September, October 2019. Have I got the right year? Yes, I think so. And our understanding, it was about that point that the community interest company, it may have been before then, opened negotiations with Putney Park. I'll stand to be corrected on that by the supporters of the application. The Bowls Club never did have a lease to occupy the site, a formal lease. It's called a license to occupy, which is about the weakest form of tenure that can legally be codified. So the last time any bowling took place there was in, roughly the early autumn, probably, of 2019. And since then, although we have 43 members, they clearly have no bowls green to play on. Not at Gunnersbury, anyway. Now, we've repeatedly asked many times to be granted access to the site to carry out maintenance to the green. As you can imagine, the bowls green is quite a sensitive flower, needs maintaining, and that access has been refused to the Bowls Club. We can understand why there are perhaps insurance issues, health and safety issues, but that same access has not been given to fully accredited landscape companies, including Capel Manor College, who run a turf management course. And Capel Manor College is right next door to the Bowls Green. So I don't know if does that answer your question, Councillor?
Can I just add a small point, and that is that people may not realise that the bowling club, this is a bit of history, the bowling club gave up one green to provide the site for the sports hub, the enormous new sports centre, and it could not use its green properly while the construction was going on because, the contractors were dumping stuff on the bowls green even. but they fully expected, once the sports hub was open and there was a new energy of sport in the park, that they would be working there again. They were part of the maintenance and management planning for the lottery project. They fully expected to be there, and suddenly they're not allowed without a full repairing lease. So it's a very big change at that point.
Councillor Lukey.
Yeah, just a couple of supplementaries on that one, Chair. So who granted the licence? Was that the London Borough of Hounslow granted the licence, or the Joint Committee, or whatever it was called then? And what efforts were made to reoccupy the site? Applications to the management of the site, and did the Bowls Club feature, even though it's not in the, we haven't seen sight of the master plan, but where did the Bowls Club feature in the early proposals for the the CIC and the kind of takeover by the Ealing Council led, as I believe from what I see, the Ealing Council led consortium here.
When you're preparing a lottery funded project, there's a lot of quite severe requirements. There's a conservation management plan which looks at all elements of the history of the site, and they identified the Bowls Club as a site of community benefit and an element that had been there since 1931. So it's a very old established element of the park. The members of the Bowls Club were represented on the committee, the steering group, that created what the lottery requires, which is called a maintenance and management plan. And this identifies every single element of the place, what work needs to be done, how often, who should do it. And the Bowls Club was in that maintenance and management plan, which went to the lottery. So basically, there was an assumption that this was a community asset which was part of a project which was getting lottery funding, and it was expected to continue. I don't know if that helps. It's a short version.
And you didn't answer my question on your relationship with the with Bowls England, sports governing body.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry about that, Councillor. Yes. I mean, the club is still affiliated to the Middlesex Bowls Association, and through that to Bowls England, and that has never ceased. During the first year of COVID, all the Bowls Club's memberships affiliations were automatically rolled over. But the Bowls Club has just recently paid its subscription. One of the very useful features of doing that is that there are a number of grants available through Bowls England associated with titles such as Return to Bowls and the rest of it. So that enables us to apply from grant funding to Bowls England. There are lots of other funds which we could apply to as well, and which we've tried, including one's grant funding offered by the Mayor of London. So,
All right, but you haven't applied.
we applied for one from the Mayor of London, but we didn't succeed. That was about, goodness me, 6 months ago, I think. But then that's the Mayor of London for you. Yeah.
Well, maybe not.
We could do it again. We could do it again.
Now, I didn't know that you had to abandon part of this your facility to the new development. But that, again, that's a sports, that is sports related. Can you what could be, if there is room for a crazy golf facility here, can it not be placed elsewhere, or could the Bowls Club not be placed elsewhere? Is there room for two of these facilities in the park?
The park is huge, so in theory there is room for both. the thing that the Friends membership was particularly upset by was the suggestion that the only place to put it was on the 1931 Bowls Green with its own hut that had been maintained for over 20 years by a group of volunteers, and the green was in really good condition. It was important that it should be maintained. And the suggestion is that you wipe all that out in order to put hardcore and concrete and astroturf in. Yeah, that might be accommodated somewhere else in the park. But as far as we know, nobody's talked to the Friends about it. There's been no publicity about this. We have no sense that anybody considered putting it anywhere else. But one of our concerns was, this is a very old established traditional sport in the park for 90 years, and we can't understand why it's not being fostered and nurtured and promoted instead of being destroyed.
Could I add just a little bit to that? Right? I mean, there are alternative sites, and we have no idea the extent to which those alternative sites have been explored with the applicant. We've hesitated to make a great song and dance about that possibility because, as you know, the committee has to make a judgment on what's before them. I mean, we can't say, well, how's about this site and how's about this site over here? But there are certainly other sites which we believe could be used and would result in both bowls and, if you desired, the Pot in the Park facility. But we haven't pursued it because it's at this meeting, because it's, I suppose, as I'm sure Sarah would correct me, it's not really a material consideration in looking at this particular application.
Yeah, all right, thanks. So what discussion, when did you first find out about this? Oh, let's go back a little bit. When the proposal for the sports centre was made, and you knew you were going to lose a bit of your licensed space, what assurances were you given at the time that you would return, that the Bowls Club, Gunsbury Bowls Club, would return to its pavilion and its albeit emaciated greens?
I don't think we know.
I don't. Yes, I'm not so sure we know. The Bowls Club has had for some years now a very difficult relationship with the Community Interest Company, rightly or wrongly. And my understanding is that the Bowls Club was offered or negotiated an extension of their license to occupy the site up until, I think I'm right, to the end of this year. And the Bowls Club at that time, I think, produced a development plan which was aimed at broadening the membership, increasing the membership, and just bringing bowls to a younger and more ethnically diverse population. But my understanding, and it's no more an understanding, is that offer was pretty well dismissed out of hand. But I would stand to be corrected on that.
I can add one point. During the long process of consultation on the sports hub, the Ealing officers involved produced a document of frequently asked questions, and they included in there their welcome for the continuation of the Bowls Club. And I think that's why they involved the Bowls Club in the production of the management and maintenance plan for the park. The Friends find themselves in the rather strange position of being the corporate memory for Gunnersbury, because there have been so many different bodies that have run it. And we have miles and miles of shelving with all these papers in. I can produce the frequently asked questions if you need them, but it's a little late at this point. But they were very supportive of the, it was an Ealing officer at that time, and they were very supportive of the Bowls Club continuing.
Councillor Lukey, you've got another question?
I have, but I'll leave this to the applicant. I'll leave these questions to the applicant.
Thanks, that's great.
Give these Bowls people a chance to recover.
Okay, can I just, looking around to see if there's anybody else who wishes to ask a question, and that's Councillor Richard Foote.
Chair, I've got two short questions actually. First being, in your knowledge, has there ever been an examination covering all of the interested sporting activities to be accommodated in Gunnersbury Park? That's the first question. And the second question would be, could, for instance, the pavilion be extended without intrusion onto the bowls green, but brought into a greater use? In your view, obviously.
Well, I think, yes, to be clear, the sort of extension and alteration to the pavilion, which is being proposed in this planning application, are really relatively minor in terms of to the pavilion itself, so that they don't encroach. The little extensions and improvements do not encroach on the bowls green in any way whatsoever. But the landscape does, obviously, of the bowls green, of pitch in the putt in the park's a proposal for the landscaping of the bowls green itself. But just to be clear, the alterations to the clubhouse have no impact on the surface of the bowls green itself.
Councillor Foote, any supplementary? That's fine, that's fine. Thank you, Councillor Foote. Councillor Guy Lambert.
Yeah, I've got sort of a couple of questions or sort of remarks. The first is, I was told, I have been told, I don't know whether it's true, that at the time the bowls clubs closed, it voluntarily handed back the keys, although it seems to have been under different management at that time, and B, there were 20 members of whom only 12 played bowls. Do you think that's correct or incorrect?
I mean, the figure of 20 members with only 12 playing bowls is not that's not a set of figures that I recognise. Councillor, no. Yeah.
So okay, so when, as you said, I brokered a meeting between the Bowls Club, who don't seem to be here tonight, yourselves, and the CIC. One of the things that was discussed there was alternative alternative places where you could put the pitch and putt. And rightly or wrongly, it was stated by the CIC and the applicant that they weren't suitable. Now I know that was disputed, but it was discussed, and so it has been explored, and we can debate whether it was whether the conclusion was correct. But I just wanted to put on record that it had been discussed.
Councillor Lambert, could you ask a question, please?
Apologies. I don't think I have any more questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Lambert. Okay, don't think Councillor Mel Collins, is that hand up or is it just waving merrily? Oh, Go ahead, Mel.
Well, although you'll be pleased to hear that Councillor Lukey and Councillor Lambert have actually touched on what I wanted to ask, but I wonder if I could pursue the handing over the keys a bit more, Chair, because in the early discussions we were told that the previous chair of the Bowls Club petitioned for the winding up of the Bowls Club anyway because of insufficient membership. So that's my first question. The second and more important one, can you explain the difference in the criteria to become a member of the Bowls Club and the proposed criteria to become a member of the pitch and putt, or whatever you call it? Because the actual membership status.
Sorry, Councillor Collins, I think you're veering off into something that that they possibly couldn't answer because you're talking about both clubs. I think if you wanted to know what, I'm not sure. I think your first question is fine. Can we just go with that one first and rethink your second question, please?
Can I repeat it? Yeah, could you, I'll rephrase it. Could you actually give us the status of membership of the Bowls Club? Whether it was a private club or whether it was open to anybody to come and play bowls if they so wished, if they requested. I'll phrase it that way.
Yeah, no, it was always open to any member of the public to come along and play. I believe there was a very small nominal fee. The difference being the benefits that accrued to those who were formerly members of the club was that they had regular series of inter-club competitions all over Middlesex, but the club was never the exclusive province of the members, and they had regular visitors. In fact, one of those regular annual visitors, which fascinates me, I'd love to have watched it, was a group called the Naked Bowlers, who came along every year, apparently. I don't know why they were called the Naked. So to answer your question, Councillor Collins, no, it was never exclusively a private membership club.
Okay, I wonder if there's any questions of a planning nature, please. I'm going to get you back to that. Since we are here to make a decision. Any other questions of the objectors? Thank you. That's fine. Thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so over to the developer, Justin. Sorry, I've lost your name. That's the surname for a minute. Justin Fish. Okay, once again.
Could I ask the permission of the committee, although the CIC is not applicant, the CIC has been subject to a number of questionings made by members of the committee to the opposition to the applicant. Would it be appropriate for me to join the applicant at the time of the questioning?
That would be perfectly acceptable as a technical assistant. Thank you. That would be fine. Thank you. Okay. Right. You have 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes, and you'll be warned 30 seconds before the end. Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. It's great to be here. Sorry.
Oh, we got time.
Sorry.
Quick off the mark. Thank you. Good evening. It's great to be here, and thank you, Chairman, for letting Putt in the Park speak at this meeting. My name is Justin, and I'm here to talk about the positive impact Putt in the Park can have on Gunnersbury Park. Putt in the Park is all about putting, not chipping, just putting, and having lots of fun in this rapidly growing sport for all ages. Each course we build takes into account their location, are carefully designed to be sympathetic to the local character and context of their settings, with detailed landscaping. We use bee-friendly plants, shrubs and trees, so increasing the biodiversity. Putney Park already have one course in a grade 2-star listed park, one in a grade 2, and another on part of a scheduled monument, which required scheduled monument consent. The design, materials, and more importantly, how they were constructed, met with Historic England approval. Our other course in Acton Park helped the park achieve green flag status for the first time in 2018, with inspectors commenting that Putney Park had really improved the landscape of the park since opening in 2017. We are considered to be a valuable enhancement and an excellent partner in all these parks. We would also really like to take this opportunity to make it clear that if we could have used a different area in the park, we would have happily done so, but unfortunately none was suitable. Putney Park would modernise the pavilion, turning it into a superb cafe with engaging staff, serving delicious home-cooked food, which will become a hub for park users year-round. It is our fundamental goal to give back and make an impact in the community. COVID permitting, we are extremely excited about becoming a part of the Chatty Cafe scheme, which aims to tackle loneliness and isolation by creating a space for customers who are open and keen to chat with other customers. We are also rightly proud of letting schools use our courses for free, and thousands of children have benefited, and more would do so from the local community if we are successful tonight. Another area where we would support the community here, and have done so in other parks, would be in the purchasing and housing of a defibrillator on site for emergency use. As a landscape putting green in use all year round, we would expect approximately 30,000 rounds to be played, drawing in new park users, with many of them going on to use the other facilities of the park and museum. All the amenities that Putney Park will be providing, from cafe, course, and toilets, would be fully wheelchair accessible, unlike at present, where there is no provision even to enter the pavilion in a wheelchair, let alone a toilet provision. We will be spending hundreds of thousands of pounds creating the course, extending, modernising the pavilion to provide a great space to enjoy with friends and family. This in turn will need a dedicated team of trained staff who ideally live close to the park, so providing jobs, training and support for members of the local community which otherwise would not exist. Guisbury Park and Museum, like all parks, are struggling with their finances. Our rent will solely be used towards the upkeep for both park and museum, so enabling them to have a sustainable future. To recap the benefits: a growing sport for all ages, landscape putting course increasing the biodiversity, new pavilion cafe welcoming all, offering great service and food, fully wheelchair accessible, free use to school, free access to the cafe for baby and toddler groups, free access to the cafe for 2 hours a day for recognised community groups, reduced rates for OAPs, defibrillator on site, investment in park, employment, more visitors to the park, helping to provide a sustainable future for the museum and park. Our application is fully supported by both Hounslow and Ealing Leisure teams, has received over 940 emails of support on the Visit Gunnersbury website since February. We also have the full support of Gunnersbury CIC, the not-for-profit community interest company, which manages the park on behalf of the two councils. The CIC's board of directors is made up of people who are local residents and who are actually aware of the need to ensure that our proposals deliver benefit to the wider community. We truly believe that we are the community partner, offering a real benefit to park users, new and old. Thank you for listening. Sorry, I shouted.
Thank you very much. Okay, right. Yeah, okay, so I'll start again the same order I did before, I think. Councillor John Todd.
Good evening. An earlier application was refused. Why should we grant this one? What have you done since that?
Well, the first application, we weren't allowed to speak at the meeting. I don't know why. I understood we would be allowed to speak at the meeting. We hadn't explained our community offering properly to the officers, which we've extended comprehensively from the original start. And we've explained our position better to council officers.
That's rather ambiguous. What do you mean you hadn't explained your case to officers?
Well, when we originally put our application in, we informed them of what our community offering was going to be. which is where the case, where they felt we weren't being supportive enough. We didn't explain what we were actually trying to do with, we had 3 schools in there, but obviously other bits and pieces which we've done, like the Chatty Cafe scheme, defibrillator, and all those other bits and pieces, has actually, changed their opinion.
Okay, you've heard the objectors.
Yeah.
And they talk about the general management, their knowledge, deep knowledge of Gunnersbury itself.
Yeah.
You've seen the comments of the Garden Trust.
Yep.
And the suggestion you've originally underestimated the huge amount of work to be done to convert to what you want. I'm just giving you the opportunity to respond to those comments.
Sorry. Well, I mean, we have, as I said in my little rambling, is that we actually already have English historic England approval on 2 or 3 of our sites. So, and one was on a monument, sort of, a scheduled monument, so which required a scheduled monument consent, which we actually had to get into serious details about how we built the course, all the details from what stonework we were using, what plants we were using, how we would have the borders, and we got full consent.
That may well be the case, but why can I assume that the third-party decision elsewhere is relevant to Gunnersbury?
Well, sorry.
Chair, if I might assist our partners here, Councillor, I think what one has to bear in mind here is that the resolve of the CIC is such that any construction work carried out by any partner within the park, we would ensure that the management of that is rigorously policed and enforced. It is absolutely not in the interest of the CIC to have a major construction process going on that disrupts users of the park. So certainly we can give you an assurance to the committee this evening that as the managing agent for the park, we will hold Justin and his constructors to account for a good, efficient construction process, if that is any assistance.
Yeah, that's very reassuring, but it doesn't go to what we're talking about. We're talking about what they propose to put in there and the huge disruption and building work, plastic glass, whatever. I mean, it just seems wholly inappropriate. And a quote from the Garden Trust, if you want, they consider it wholly inappropriate. I'm just giving him the opportunity to comment on that. The fact that other trusts have got approval elsewhere doesn't necessarily mean that approval rolls over onto Gunnersbury Park.
Well, why would? I'm sorry, I don't understand why I wouldn't. I mean, if the Historic England have seen us in 3 different parks, been through all the details of what we produce, we're not changing massively what we're designing in Gunnersbury Park per se, as far as materials being used. Why wouldn't that be? Why wouldn't that sort of be?
Well, can you show me the letter of approval from Historical Park?
I can forward you a letter of approval from Historic England. Thank you. I can.
For this scheme, hang on. For this scheme?
No, not for this scheme.
Well,
Chairman, if I might assist
Sorry,
our client,
hang on a
is
minute.
that, Councillor, my understanding is that the position of Historic England is covered in officers' report, that they have not objected and have taken, I would venture, a neutral stance on the proposal. It is actually in the report, to my understanding.
I note the word neutral. Thanks. Okay. Can we come on to the Garden Trust view?
Sorry, could I ask you to ask a question rather than ask them to comment on it, John? Yeah?
Okay.
Is that possible?
It'd be a pleasure. Sorry, Mr. Fish.
Yes, sorry.
I'm very guarded by our chairman. You've seen the comments of the Garden Trust.
Yes, of course.
Would you like to comment on what they say?
Well, I disagree with them, obviously. I mean, what we produce has in other parks been accepted as being an improvement to the park. And certainly in Acton, as I use as one of my examples, the landscape, it got green flag status because we had improved the park. So I see us as an improvement, not a ruining a park. No.
Councillor Todd? Carry on.
Wait, finish.
As I said, I'm going to go back in the order, I think. Councillor Tony Lukey.
You assumed correctly that I would have questions. When you say you looked, and it could easily be one for David Bowler. I mean, you looked at other locations in the park. Why did you discount other locations? Was it because you would have had to have plumbed water, electric into another location on the site, but this location here had already had those facilities?
As Councillor Lukey invited me to comment, Chair, I will, but I think it's important to recognise the applicant is the decision maker as to the final.
No. Go ahead.
Hang
on, David.
Hang on.
Chair.
Could we please let him answer the question first, then you can come back.
I was looking for the developer to answer the question, to be honest, rather than David.
That's fine. Go ahead.
We looked all around the park. We need a building of sorts to put our cafe in. It has to be an accessible part of the park. It has to be within the master plan, as far as I understood it. The other areas which we considered in the park had limitations through the master plan, and also the cost of, I think one of the estimates of the cost of the area which was being suggested by the Friends of had I think a clearance and redevelopment of £3 million. So that's beyond viability for us.
Sorry. What other locations are you talking about here at the the park?
The old tennis courts. The old tennis courts and putting area.
£3 million.
Well, no, sorry, David knows better than me on this one.
Councillor Lukey, please.
Chair, if I try and address Councillor Lukey's query as concisely as possible, we invited Put in the Park to explore other areas of the park, absolutely, and one of the areas that I recall as being suggested by local councillors as part of their attempts to broker an agreement between parties was the model farm and the adjacent former tennis courts. The view taken by the applicant in consultation with myself and our board of directors was that the cost of development of that area was prohibitive. In addition, as the area, as was pointed out by the objectors, is a live area for consideration as part of the delayed master plan, the view taken was on the grounds of that lack of certainty and the cost of development, it was not suitable, and therefore the development was again refocused on the Bowls Green.
Councillor Lukey.
Okay, I think I understand that, but in my opinion, it doesn't necessarily wash. So where does this fit in? Where does this fit in with the Gunnersbury Park master plan? And why has not? Where did it fit in at the beginning? And where does it fit in now? And when will the rest of the master plan be revealed? Because if you're talking about a master plan, then we possibly will expect more development here. And what we're looking at here is perhaps piecemeal.
Chair, forgive me, it appears appropriate that that question is more directed at the CIC. In terms of the position with the current bowling site, the proposals as tabled in the application this evening have been floated with Historic England, who, as the objectors quite rightly pointed out, have commissioned the master plan. The drafts of the master plan, which again the objectors are absolutely correct, are not in the public domain because candidly they have not been delivered to the partnership of the councils, the CIC and the Friends. So the delay is not a product of any of our doing. It is Historic England and is regrettable. However, the 4 options that are contained in the last draft I saw do not in any way preclude
the development that is being put forward this evening. In fact, there are options of redeveloping that site for alternative uses which have yet to be put to any form of consultation. So what I would say is the master plan review does envisage potential repurposing of the bowling green for a number of options. The option that we've put forward is in the view of the CIC in lobbying Historic England, an option that does not preclude any further beneficial development of the estate. So this is not an option that we believe would jeopardize the integrity or coherence of that master plan. In fact, it may prevent other uses of the bowls green, which were they brought forward, may in fact generate further objections from the community.
Yeah, but can I ask, by that time it'll be too late. If this is approved tonight, any other alternatives, including a bowls club, would be too late, because Mr. Fish would be itching to get the bulldozers in. And why now? Why not wait until partners, including the London Borough of Hounslow, and your other community partners in master planning, why not wait until you're able to put all proposals or all possibilities forward? Once this goes ahead, if it was to get planning permission, if it goes ahead, then all other alternatives will be missed, whether it includes bowls club or anything else. You're jumping the gun here. Just because you're looking at jam today, I think, David.
Chair, I'm happy to respond, although respectfully I would say I think the question is slightly moving off the application and becoming an interrogation of the CIC's and indeed partners, including the council's position on a matter, the master plan, which is not yet resolved and is not in the public domain. I'm happy to answer, but respectfully, I don't think it would be appropriate in the context of the application that's been made.
Oh, hold on. Sorry. The master plan isn't under discussion. In fact, this is a planning application. The master plan is part of something else, but that's all. Okay, we'll go into that.
It's been referred to. It's been referred to by on a number of occasions. Master plan has been referred to on a number of occasions. So let's not allow them to back out of it now because they're being questioned on it. Thank you.
No. Well, I don't think that's that's a moot point. The master plan is not in the public domain. That's the problem at the moment. It will make some differences, possibly, and that's something you'll have to look at when you come to comment. If they don't wish to answer a question, that's up to them. It's as simple as that. No, it's as simple as that. They can say, "Excuse me." I'm not worried about that, Councillor Lukey. The whole point about this is if they choose not to answer a question, that's up to them. They can say no comment like anybody else can, or whatever else. And it may be that we will have a disagreement about that. At this point in time, I would like some questions for the developer on the planning application, please. I don't know if anyone's got any questions on that. Otherwise, Councillor Mel Collins.
I have, Chair, but you won't like it. Yeah, through you, Chair, listening to the developer and particularly to the objectors, and certainly from the comments that have been interceded by CIC, I'm very concerned about the extension of the landscaping, which almost comes down to deliberately taking out the bowls club and not giving any consideration to a joint venture with the bowls club and the pitch and putt. And I wonder if you would like to make any comment whatsoever on that matter. Before I finish, I would also just like to say that one of the big providers in the park is Capel Manor, and Capel Manor were willing to to guide and advise people on how to operate the greens to a very high standard, which would give another angle to this in terms of training.
Take that as a question.
Chair, could I attempt to answer the context of the question, then pass to our developer partner? I think if I could take this opportunity to address some of the comments that were made by objectors. At the point that the Gunnersbury Park Bowls Club's license to occupy was determined, that determination was entirely consensual with the then committee management of the Bowls Club. So in 2019, the then committee manager at the Bowls Club and the Bowls Club membership at that point were running at circa 22 members, consented and did indeed hand the keys back, because at that point the messaging given by the Bowls Club was that they as a club were unable to develop the club sustainably to meet either the requirement of a repairing lease, which was a requirement handed to the CIC in 2018 by Hounslow Council. Hounslow Council officers have been attempting to negotiate that for some years unsuccessfully. So there's an element of legacy for the CIC inheriting here. But at that point, the club effectively surrendered its interest. As such, there is no mandated or relationship with an entity called the Gunnersbury Park Bowls Club and the CIC. So the idea that we would be working actively with a club that has an interest in the park to develop joint endeavours is misleading. The club, as far as we were aware, consensually sought to wind itself up. We therefore have progressed the negotiations with the applicant with a view to ensuring that a site within the park, which may have been rendered void by a departed bowls club, can actually do two things. One, provide a service to our community in terms of leisure and sport, and two, provide a revenue stream which will be recycled into the upkeep of the park and museum. So I think it's important just to state a counter position. I understand that positions are, recollections will be different, but that's our position. I'll now hand over to the applicant.
Thank you. Thank you. We did try and look at it. We were given a centre plan by one of the Bowls Club committee members, which would mean extending the pavilion even further, taking out area at the rear of the clubhouse, trying to reorientate the clubhouse to the other way, away from the bowls green. But there's a huge drop. There's a pathway, and there's the cricket pitch, which all prevent this happening. And the actual added cost of extending the clubhouse made it unviable. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, you got a yes, supplementary. Off you go.
Yeah, can I seek your guidance, please? Yeah. Everyone calls you David. I don't know what your surname is, so I apologise. And you haven't said who.
Sorry, John.
Okay, I don't know. I've never met you before, and I don't know what your role is.
David, would you like to?
My apologies. I'm the chief executive of the Community Interest Company. We did meet Councillor at Chiswick House a couple of weeks ago, but I might have been incognito at the time.
Well, I might have been too. All right. Well, I apologise for asking, but yeah, I'd like to ask him some questions.
Right, if you just hold on a second, Councillor John Todd, I'll just check that nobody else wants to ask questions. I'll come back to you. Right, Councillor Guy Lambert.
Thanks. So this is meant for the applicant rather than the CIC. First thing is that the Gardens Trust makes some not very complimentary comments about your landscaping plans. They say that they're hardy, that they're hardy plants rather than nice ones, to paraphrase as a non-gardener. Can you make some improvements to your landscaping plans to accommodate some of that?
Yes, obviously we can make. Obviously we can make improvements, and we can add in more planting, and we can actually ask their advice about what planting to put in. I'm more than happy to do that, and I think that would be advisable after their comments.
Okay, some of the other part of your application is talking about community use, free times for schools,
Yep.
discounts for OAPs, etc.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that? Because if the free times are at 10 o'clock at night, they're not much good. But
no, I mean, certainly with the schools, they can come anytime. Obviously, in school time, they just have to make an appointment. We have up to 40. We're allowed up to 40 each time, and as long as they're looked after by the teachers, our staff are there to help. So that's available all the time, all year round. I've said that we will allow 2 hours a day, 9 to 11, for any recognised community to use it. The Chatty Cafe scheme, we actually will have a table which will actually have a sign on it, which will just which will be set aside at certain hours, and that will be recognised on their website. And that will be a same will happen every week, so people know that table will be available. Reduced rate for OAPs, yes, we do reduced rates.
thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's all I had. Oh, have you had any engagement with schools, or is it too early?
Well, no, we haven't obviously done anything. We wouldn't know, but obviously our site in Acton had a visitation this week, and our site in Wandsworth had a visitation this week from schools.
And are you doing stuff with schools in Acton, for example?
Yeah, yes, we do. We actually had the Parents Association come round, obviously about 2 years ago. They did a fundraising there, and we let the whole site go on a Sunday for them to do the fundraising, which enabled them. I've got it in writing somewhere, but I can't recall. Sorry. But I have got
Could you go through the chair, please?
I have got. There is something I put in one of our things which actually makes comments to Mr. Potts. It was, but I can't remember which school. Sorry.
Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Samia Chowdhury.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much to the objectors and to the applicant for their talk and presentation. Just a couple of quick ones. Councillor Lambert has asked as well, do you know the free use of pavilion for babies and toddlers group you've mentioned here? Is it going to be on kind of restricted hours or any time during when you're open, or they have to go by the appointment as well?
They would have to come by appointment. We have 2 groups in Acton, and they have a regular slot on a Thursday and a Tuesday. They come in at 9, and I think they finish by 11. And I think that's on both occasions. That's right.
And you have said that you can look at the landscape and about the trees and.
Yes, we will. I mean, I will. If it's successful, I will contact them, and I will discuss if I can find any improvements, and I will obviously contact them.
Thank you. Just another quick one. Reduced rate for OAPs, you've said. Is that going to be on the restricted hours as well?
That's 7 days a week as we're open.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor John Todd.
Yeah. Mr. Bowler, can I ask you some questions for clarifications, please? You said quite clearly that the Bowls Club had closed and given the keys back. And so my interpretation of that they have no identity or credibility. But who have you granted a license to post the keys being handed in?
Nobody, Councillor. The site is void. So the previous management regime of the Bowls Club cooperated with us back at the end of 2019 and handed the keys back. I think it was the beginning of January 2020. And since that time, as there has been no relationship with an entity called the Bowls Club, the area has been void, awaiting a decision on the proposal by the applicant.
So just to clarify that, I'm a bit slow. No relationship whatsoever. No license issued or lease issued.
There is no legal relationship. The entity describing itself as Gunnersbury Park Bowls Club, I have absolutely no doubt that there is a group who have coalesced around that name. And I've spoken to a number of individuals who identify as leading lights within that. and have attempted to have reasonable conversations many times. But the CIC, as the managing agent on behalf of the council, has no legal relationship, and that, councillor, has been a particular issue when the entity calling itself the club has requested access to the green to carry out works. We have no relationship with them and would not grant a body that we have no relationship with access to any part of Gunnersbury Park to carry out maintenance.
Okay, well, we've heard different tonight, so I'll just clarify on that and a further clarification. Yeah. Can you say the same about LBH? Have they granted a lease or any relationship?
I can, absolutely. The only lease relationship relating to Gunnersbury Park and Museum is a lease held by the CIC with the joint parties of Ealing and Hounslow. The CIC is then empowered under that lease, with the consent of the landlord, the freeholders, to grant subleases to other parties, and negotiations are underway with Capel Manor, for example, for that, but there is no license agreement with an entity called the Bowls Club, and indeed no license agreement with the developer. We have not jumped the gun at all in terms of granting interest in the land.
Can you tell me who else applied for this pitch and putt site?
The pitch and putt development was not subject to an open tender process. The applicant for this was introduced to the CIC by one of the stakeholders in the CIC, which is its joint owner, London Borough of Ealing. The CIC is wholly owned 50-50 by Hounslow and Ealing, and it was the Ealing board representative who introduced pitch and putt. It was then approved by the CIC board. I want to stress, councillor, I'm the hired help. The decisions relating to the pursuit of this applicant is the remit of the board of directors, not myself.
That's a very clear answer. But in pursuing the line you took, could it possibly be in breach of either council's procurement policy or not?
Councillor, given the fact that the board of directors of the CIC includes senior officer representation from both Ealing and Hounslow, the view taken by the board was that as neither officer said that that would be in breach of any council regulation, then the board took a decision, I would say, in good faith. And those two council officers, I am absolutely sure, would have ensured that any advice they gave or decision they took was backed by their full understanding of standing orders of the two councils.
Can I go back, Mr. Fish? Mr. Fish, just a quick question.
Yes, of course.
You mentioned the track record of your other sites you have.
Yes.
Has any local authority turned down that application apart from ours?
Yes, Wandsworth has, which is a site on Clapham Common, which is in the hands of the Planning Inspectorate at the moment.
Okay, Councillor Tony Lukey, question?
Yeah, whilst there might not be a bowls club, an incorporated bowls club there at Gunnersbury, there is a bowls, you accept that there's a bowling facility there. There's a pavilion and a bowling green. So there is a sui generis, if you like, bowls club. You accept that, and so what effort has been made to reintroduce bowls, even with the demise of the Gunnersbury Bowls Club? What effort has been made to reintroduce bowls at Gunnersbury Park?
Chair, forgive me for being presumptuous. I assume I'm probably better placed to answer that. If I can take the committee back to the root, at the point that the previous incumbent bowls club was, shall we say, in difficulties, we approached GLL, who were the appointed sports centre management contractor, because candidly it struck me, and indeed the then management of the bowls club, that there may be some sense in seeing whether the sports pavilion next door and the management of that could lend a helping hand to the sustainment or, councillor, the relaunching of bowls. Unfortunately, the view of GLL, who are the appointed management contractor, is that bowls is not on that site, or indeed in many of their other sites, is not a viable sport for them. So they declined to either one, support the then existing club, or to take steps to work with us to reinvigorate bowls on the green. And I have to say, Chair, in the absence of support from the specialist sports management contractor on site, the view that the CIC board took was that they were better placed to support bowls. If anyone, they couldn't do it. So the CIC board continued its pathway of supporting the applicant.
Thank you. Okay, thank you both very much indeed. That's the end of your presentation and your questions and answers. So thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to go over to Sarah for the going through the report on the planning application before us.
Thank you, Chair. So I've already outlined what the application is for. I think we've explored that in some depth through the presentations. I just want to start, and the objectors brought it up, to just be really clear about what's in front of you this evening. It is an application for the change of use of the clubhouse to the cafe and facilities to support the golfing use, and the landscaping for the golfing use. You will be aware, it's in the report, the issues of who made the decision to grant the lease, or the issue around the fact that there might be a better place for this facility, is not in the gift of the planning application. We have to make a decision tonight on the basis of the planning merits of this case. So, and principally, the planning issue is the change of use, and it was touched on by the objectors and touched on when it came to the committee in January. The principal point of planning is the change of use and the loss of the community facility. So the clubhouse in planning terms is designated as a community facility. The change of use away from that clubhouse does represent a loss of community facility as defined in our local plan. Officers believe there is justification that overcomes the loss of this clubhouse, which is why we're recommending approval. It's outlined in the report that from that quite detailed information submitted by the CIC since it was last presented to the committee, that there is extensive plans in Gunnersbury that have been put down for community use of the park, and the community facility here, in the officer's opinion, is the entirety of the park. There is a significant benefit. There is a significant public benefit to the park, which we appreciate. But that doesn't overcome the fact that it is a loss of a community facility. So technically, as is written in the report, it doesn't meet the requirements of that CL1 policy, which you will have heard a lot about in other applications and in this. It doesn't go through the policy test that's there. However, there is evidence that justifies us departing from that policy in this case, and that is the overarching wider community use of that park and the way that this facility will contribute to the use of that community facility going forward. So therefore, as the report concludes, it is officers consider to be in line with the intent of that policy, CL1. Whilst not being in accordance, it hasn't demonstrated that it meets all those tests, but it is overall in accordance with the direction of the local plan, and that is on the basis that it does support the local community use of the park in its widest sense. We've heard about the landscaping that's proposed tonight, and I think we've heard that the applicants have suggested that could be reviewed. There is conditions in the application that secure the landscaping as proposed, and it was up on the screen for some time. The existing hedging in this plan to the north and to the east of this plan will be retained, and overall officers have concluded that the proposal in terms of the landscaping is acceptable, and overall would not significantly impact on the historic benefits of the park or the pavilion itself. So we're recommending approval for those extensions to the pavilion and to the landscaping as is proposed. And just to finish with to be clear that the issues around moving the golfing facility to another part of the park, or decisions around the lease, or how those decisions were made, do not form part of the planning consideration tonight. It is the issues that are in front of us are the loss of the community facility, and the replacement use that's going in its place, and the landscaping of that golfing facility. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, questions of the officer? I'm looking round. Right, Richard Foote.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a bit concerned because when we referred this back earlier this year, or we rejected the original application, we referred it back to the Gunnersbury Park Committee to advise us as to whether or not all of these activities could be accommodated within the park and within planning applications that would be want to be in a master plan. The actual rejection was on that basis, but we have not received a response from the Gunnersbury Park Committee, unless I'm wrong, which is my question, the last bit.
Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. So just to kind of expand on that master plan point, the master plan that's been discussed is a master plan between Gunnersbury Park, Historic England and the CIC and the Friends. It's not a planning document. It's not a planning designation document that we can refer to or require in planning terms the park to abide by. It is a management plan effectively for Gunnersbury Park. You've heard already from the CIC and the applicant that plan isn't in front of us. That's not in the public domain at the moment. What the CIC have submitted is details of their remit and their plans for the park and the details around which they had to find a new use for this site effectively. That has in offered the details that were contained in that letter, which is on the application file, have cumulatively come to the conclusion that officers have now reached, which is that the community use of this facility does support the wider use of the park.
Carry on.
Yeah, the reason I'm referring it back to Gunnersbury Park was really for them to say whether or not all of these activities and other activities could be accommodated in there without the destruction of the bowling green. That hasn't been answered. We've not had a response from them. We didn't ask that question of CIC. We asked it of Gunnersbury Park Committee.
Hang on. Sorry, Councillor Richard Foote. CIC are the people who are the Gunnersbury Park. They are the committee, as it were. There isn't a separate committee that you can ask. You'd have to ask CIC that question, and I thought that question had been asked by the officers of the CIC and the developers within the report.
Well, that wasn't made clear when we rejected this last year, and that was on the terms that they would come back and say whether or not there was room to be able to accommodate all of these activities.
Now, sorry, my point was that there is only one CIC that runs the park. There is no Gunnersbury Park Committee, so therefore the questions are asked of the CIC. So it would have possibly been a question you could have asked David Bowler when he was as the objections, because that is where that sits. There is no such thing as Gunnersbury Committee. Okay.
I'm only as good as the information given to me last year. Or earlier this year.
I'm very sorry. I wasn't here then. I can't give you that then. Okay. Have you got any other questions, Councillor Richard Foote? Okay. Councillor Tony Dookie?
Yeah, question for the officers. We had the Gardens Trust did feature in the Councillor Todd, even the Gardens Trust did feature in the planning application for allotments at Syon Park a couple of years ago, and they also featured at the planning application for the Tesco home base site back in April. So why are our officers? I'm asking planning officers. Why are we not considering the concerns of the Gardens Trust in this instance? So they're not an obscure organisation. They are a statutory consultee. Where are the where are the responses of Sport England here on the loss of a bona fide world sports bowls being a world sports activity? Where are they in this report? And we've heard the developer, and where is the robust evidence showing that there's no longer a use for this bowls facility here, as outlined in 6.7 your CL1.
Okay, can you just hold it there then?
Yeah, all right.
You can come back with some more in a minute. Okay, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. So the landscaping that's on the screen here is new. That's what we've received since we were last at Planning Committee. That landscaping, and particularly the hedging around the edge, is secured by condition. And I think the applicants have said today, if there was more, we believe that's addressed the comments from the Gardens Trust. I think the applicant has suggested that they would be happy to review that landscaping, and there is a condition there that can be altered to address that. In relation to Sport England, they weren't required to be consulted as a part of this application. And your final point, which I've just forgotten. Oh, it's about it being in accordance with the policy, which is, as is explained in the report, that it doesn't meet those tests that are set out in CL1. The report is quite clear on that point, but officers have looked at the application in the round and all the policies in the plan in the round, and concluded that the use of this site as for the golfing facility does meet the aims of that policy in its biggest sense in terms of supporting a community facility, and does meet the aims of the other policies in the plan that support outdoor recreation. So that's the justification that the officers have concluded is acceptable in this case in relation to that policy, whilst clearly outlining in the report the details against which they've assessed it.
Councillor Tony Lukey, you had any more questions? Thank you. Did I see, sorry, Councillor Samia Chowdhury, did I see you wave? Sorry, you're a long way away from me tonight.
Oh, I did, but that's fine. Councillor Lukey's already asked, so that's fine. It was a couple of points. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor John Todd?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Finally.
And I will ask questions. Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Scannell. The public follow these meetings, public meetings. And a member of the public has written to me saying the original application was refused, then it was refused again. And the reasons were contravention of policy CL1, loss of D2 community facility, and contravention of Hounslow joint health and wellbeing strategy. And then out of the blue, a fresh set of papers come out and it's recommended for approval. Now, how do members of the public follow the thought process, the structured process that made our department have a complete change of mind? Can you give us some evidence that persuaded you and or your colleagues to do 100% term, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes. In the report, you've got. Oh, sorry. I'll take that point in a second. In the report, there is the previous scheme of 2020 where it was refused, and that was to do with the arrangement and the lighting of the site, and about this D2 use, about the loss of the community facility. That maintained to be the case when it appeared to you last in January. So the thing that's changed since that is the additional information that have been received from the CIC, the letters of support from Hounslow and from Ealing leisure teams in relation to the wider impact of this facility on the park, which demonstrates to officers and has demonstrated to officers that the wider community facility of the park would be supported by this use. And that gives us a different interpretation and additional information to bring to the assessment when you look at that CL1 policy. And as is written in the report, it doesn't meet the steps of that policy. It continues to not meet the steps of that policy, but the information has given the context, a bit of better context about how it will support the wider community use of the bigger community facility, which is Gunnersbury Park.
That's a fascinating explanation. So it appears you've totally disregarded the views of the public. I think there was at least 600 people that objected to it, but you'd rather accept the word of officers from both boroughs. Can you clarify a minor point? Paragraph 610, is policy CL1 the same as policy C11, or is that a separate policy?
I think it's the same one. I think it's CL1.
It's a spelling error.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if I'm looking at page 18 and page 19, and at 610, the application does not strictly meet the standard requirement. Well, in my view, it doesn't meet the standard. And then we go on 611, the loss of a community clubhouse is regrettable. And then we go on to paragraph 619, mention of a degree marginally more harmful. Why does this applicant get special pleading?
Thank you, Chair. There is no special pleading here. The application was assessed, additional and brought to you for refusal. It was deferred for further information to be received and for further voices to be heard in the public forum of the Planning Committee. Further information was received, which altered the assessment, as would be the case if it was a new application. And the information that's been received has been presented in the context of the local plan in the report.
Thank you, Sarah. Can I just come back to my one final point? Would you agree, and I think you used the words in your opening presentation, there has been a loss of a community use?
Thank you, Chair. Through the loss of the clubhouse and its use as a bowling clubhouse is by definition a loss of a community facility by definition.
And you're satisfied, given what's taken place so far, and the applicant's response to us, he was asked by way of example, had he been in touch with schools, and he said he hadn't. Are you in danger of accepting the reasons he gives in para 69 without evidence of them being confirmed?
Thank you, Chair. The assessment is based on the wider community facility of Gunnersbury Park and how this facility in its entirety will support the community use of Gunnersbury Park. In terms of the community use that the applicant has put forward, there is a condition that requires that to be secured. So there's no doubt in my mind that we should not, we are securing that through the planning process. So the fact that schools haven't been contacted to date doesn't seem unusual. They probably would wait until there was a planning application in place to do that. And in any event, it's secured through the condition.
Right, I'm just checking. Councillor Tony Lukey.
Yeah, just on that, I've been away for a couple of years, Sarah, not been on the planning committee, and it's really great to be back. One of the things that concerns me on this, on 6.9, for example, we've had this before. We've had this for the tennis facility down at Duke's Meadows. You'll remember that one, and also the Rectory Farm. I know we haven't gone too far with that, but how are we going to monitor this so-called community use that's in this that we're accepting here, and even by condition? But how do we know? Because officers never check these things, I don't think. I really don't believe that officers do.
Had the question, please.
Yeah, well, I did say, how are we going to, how councillors, members of the planning committee, representing residents, how are we going to be assured that these conditions are going to be checked? Because I don't think, for example, the ones down at Goals Gillette Corner and McFarlane Lane.
Councillor
are not
Lukey,
checked.
could you ask a specific question on this planning attraction, please? And don't refer to any other, please. Come on.
I'm referring, Chair.
You've asked the question, so can we not leave it there?
I'm referring to track
answer it,
record.
please?
So far, we don't. How are we going to ensure this and all the other ones that we've approved over the years are going to be monitored?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the condition is there. If it were that we received a complaint that it might not have been used or been offered in accordance with that, as is set out in the document, the community use document that's been submitted, then we would investigate and take the appropriate enforcement action. That's the mechanism that we have in the planning regime to enforce conditions where they're put on planning application.
And Chair, that will be publicised to the community, because usually it just finishes here, doesn't it? It goes on a condition, and it just finishes here. How are residents going to know that this can be checked?
Thank you. If a resident is concerned and has reason to believe that the condition is not being adhered to, they can contact us. And we will investigate. That's the normal planning enforcement process. It's available on our website. People can submit a form, or they can email us.
I'm just looking to see if, all right, Councillor Guy Lambert, question.
This is probably out of order, but I wanted to make a suggestion, because I think Tony makes a very good point there. In reality, I think it's quite difficult for officers to do that, and it's quite difficult for the public to do that. I would have thought there might be a case for a 6-monthly review carried out by the CIC with local councillors to ensure that this is happening.
Well, hold on. That is actually a question that I suspect David Boland might need to answer. Would you like to come and?
Chair, thanks for affording us the opportunity. Clearly, I would need to clear this with my board, so I have to caveat that, Councillor. But I think there's two options here. One, we can bake into the lease agreement that we will enter into with the developer if this is approved, compliance with the planning conditions that Sarah's team have put in. And secondly, I am absolutely comfortable, again, in recommending to my board that we actually put those planning conditions on the CIC website and we commit to enforcing them through that lease agreement with the developer. The conditions that officers have prescribed here, I think, would be entirely comfortably accepted by us in terms of being a second level of enforcement. It is in our commitment to ensure that if planning conditions are granted, we would also wish to enforce them as a proxy, if you will, for the council.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you very much for your suggestion, Councillor Guy Lambert. Okay, are there any other questions for the officer? Can't see anybody. Okay. Oh, Councillor Samuel Chowdhury.
Thank you, Chair. I think David has clarified the very big 2 points where a lot of the concerns from my colleagues are there for community use and everything, and our planning officer has as well. And I feel we've had a very
question, please.
I just wanted to say that we've had a very heavy and healthy debate on this. Can we move on?
Excuse me, we haven't had a debate yet. That's the point. I'm still trying to get your questions, please. Right. And I'm just asked one last round, just checking that nobody else wanted the question.
Can I just ask then a quick one where I was coming on to the question? I was just going to say to Sarah that we normally say, like Councillor Lukey has said, that we put these conditions on, but now David have answered that question to say that they can put it through the CSC and on the website as well. So will, if they agree to do that with the board, will that be monitored with the planning officer as well? Or is it just you'll still have to receive a complaint to act on?
Thank you. That's a good one.
Thank you. So I think what's been agreed to by the CIC is that there's another layer of requirement that will be enforced. Probably, I would say, in probably a more streamlined way than the planning enforcement process, if we're being completely honest. But what we will do, we will have that document that outlines the commitment of the developer to do that community uses that have been set out, that will be available for people to see. So I think from the planning perspective, people would still have to make a complaint, if you like. They would have to tell enforcement if they wanted enforcement action to be pursued. But I think what the CIC are offering is a more landlord appropriate condition against which the use will be able to function. So I think it's a combination of the two.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, so it's now open for debate or anything else anybody wants to do. Yes, good evening. Good evening, Councillor Sidhu.
Good evening, Chair. Yes, we have two arguments here today. We have CIC who look after day-to-day running of the Gunsbury Park, and on the other hand, we have Friends of Gunsbury Park. Like CIC has more knowledge and more working about the economics and how the Gunsbury Park's future requirements are. They came up with the planning application, we put it back, but now they came up with lots of improvements in the planning application. If you look into that, so they come up with golf course, and probably they know that Bowl House, which is replaced by cafe, that's probably future needs of the Gunsbury Park. So I think we should look for approval.
Okay, thank you. Are we actually moving something then, or you just that's okay? If you
just starting the debate.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. That's lovely. Anybody else want to make a comment, please? Councillor Samia Chowdhury.
Thank you, Chair. I think if I'll be really honest with you, I'll just echo what Councillor Ragwinder Sidhu has said. We've kind of listened to the both and if everything is with the community use and everything can go on and can monitor it, like CSC can look into it, and then the planning officer have already said that the conditions can be added. I'm happy to move the approval as well. Thank you.
Okay, so I have approval from Councillor Samia Chowdhury. Can I see a seconder, please? Yes. Okay, Councillor Sidhu. Thank you. Okay, does anyone want to make any more comments? Councillor Richard Foote.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say I find myself in some difficulty. I've listened to the arguments. I feel there's something lacking in this project, and I would find it very difficult to vote for it. And I'm still trying to tackle that in my own head at the moment.
Okay. Councillor Tony Lukey.
Yeah, similarly, I'm finding it difficult to understand this and to like it, particularly without seeing this application in the greater context of Gunnersbury Park, which has seen a lot of change. I very much welcome the sporting activity, the new sports activity and facilities there. The improvements to the museum. Wish it wasn't too Ealing centric, as I've noticed over the in recent years, and the influence of that neighbouring borough even though this is our borough and we have a lot of history. It's located in our borough, and we have a lot of history that can be shared there. But I'm kind of losing the democracy here and the sporting democracy here in Gunnersbury Park. The use. Yes, we welcome tennis. Yes, we welcome other sports in the sports hall. But but some kind of Disney type crazy golf thing, however it's couched, using plastic grass as well, replacing well manicured bowls green. I'm finding it difficult to support this in the wider context, which has not yet been revealed. Whether by the CIC or perhaps officers. I mean, we hear mention of officers here, Ealing Council officers, and introduced by an Ealing Council officer, for example. And there's already one of these facilities in the borough of Ealing, and however that came about. But I don't see where the taking the community with you is coming on this, and it's not necessarily, whether it is a bowls club, whether it should be a bowls club or not, and we haven't seen entirely the evidence of a bowling club wanting to run this. But if there is new impetus there, and if there hasn't been an offer of this facility to an organisation to run bowls there or something similar, because if Bowls Green or this facility could be run separately for a different use, perhaps, particularly with older and well-being sports, walking football, for example, or similar for older residents. I don't see this as an appropriate use for an established, albeit not running at the moment, bowls facility. So I will not be supporting this this planning application for a number of reasons, and not least the comments from the Garden Trust being ignored, and the Gardens Trust has been around a lot longer than Crazy Golf. And even some of these organisations are proposing this. So that's my comment, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Ashmagruel.
Thank you, Chair. Well, seeing that the facility's been vacant and underused for over 18 months or so, I think it's about time we gave the public something new there. So why not? I think it's a different idea. It'll give the community something different. It's a big, large park, and a section of it could go for Crazy Golf or whatever. So I do support it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Guy Lambert.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all somewhat torn by this, and that the reason I called it in the first place is that because I wanted to have it out in a planning committee. The thing that pulls me in favour of it, and I will be in favour of it, is that the reality is that we had a bowls club with 22 members, I believe, 20, maybe it was 23, and not much use. And what hasn't been brought out tonight, but I think is certainly true, is that there was an opportunity, and they were encouraged to try and grow membership. They failed to do so. At that point, the bowls club itself handed back the keys and said that they were winding up. And I've had conversations with people who are still members of the so-called bowls club who told me a year ago that it's finished. We've sold the equipment. We've given up. Now, admittedly, they said that's because the CIC are intransigent and don't want to play. But for me, as a ward councillor, we've got this bowls facility in my ward. It is used by very few people. Other bowls clubs are available, not very far away. I'd much rather have that space used for something which will supposedly attract 30,000 people a year in a park that we're trying to drive more use in. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else wish to add anything to this discussion? Otherwise, Councillor Mel Collins.
Yeah, I don't often disagree with Guy, but on this occasion I do, and I think we're all missing the point here that we're actually losing a community facility. We're not gaining one, and I think that the comments that Councillor Samia Chowdhury made were actually a bit worrying, because 3 times she used the word if. If we're going to support a planning application, we need to make sure that those conditions that we put on are absolutely watertight, not if maybe or could be. That's important, Chair. So, Councillor Grill made the point that let's vote for it because there will be public use. Could I just respectfully point out that the public use actually on the Crazy Golf will be limited because it's going to be a private club, which is the question I was trying to tease out a lot earlier, but failed to get a satisfactory answer. So I think that I hear what people say, but I think we need to make sure that we've got a park that we can be proud of. But if we're taking away community use, that's not a section of the park we can be proud of. And so, regrettably, I will find myself voting against this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to just help members. Just on this one, just to have in mind, obviously you've had your debate and you form your own views and take into account your own planning judgment. But, you know, any planning application, it has to be, you know, determined in accordance with the development plan and any other material planning considerations. So if members are minded to head down a refusal route, then we just need to be absolutely crystal clear on what are the planning reasons so that this would be defendable on any appeals. I just wanted to say that just because I'm just feeling kind of the thrust of the debate. So just want to make sure that that's at the forefront. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I don't need a proper answer, as it were, I just want a nod of the head. There was a suggestion that should, and I'm going to get it around the right way, pitch in the button fail or, you know, leaves, when it leaves, that it restore, that's fine. So that would be that's part of the lease condition. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. I don't need to ask the next question then, so that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to put this to the vote. As we did last time, it'd be useful to have a show of hands first, and then I'll go around individually and asking you for your vote so that Wendy can write that down, and also so it can be seen that we are working in accordance to the rules that we were using when it was on Teams. Sarah.
Sorry, can I just, I think, just to be clear on the motion in terms of any amendments to the conditions, because I think Councillor Chowdhury, you mentioned the conditions, and I presume that's about the landscaping condition, to look at a plan to be submitted that outlines an enhanced landscaping of the surrounding of the boundary treatment of the site.
That's one, but the second one was the monitoring of the community use.
So that's already a condition. That's already a condition in the report. I just wanted to make sure it was the landscaping that we were referring to when we're taking this vote.
Because that was the bit about the garden trust having some it will be advisory, etc. on what plants, what extra plants, what plants. Thank you.
Chair,
okay, so let's move.
Chair, subject to the approval of the Garden and Trust, but if that would help Sarah, these conditions be monitored by the Garden Trust and approved first.
Well, I don't think we can lay that down, but we can ask them. Okay. Okay, so can we now move to the vote on, we have approval on the table, and can I see all those in favour? Could you just show, please? Thank you. Okay. Right, those against, please. And any abstentions, please? Okay, so I'll go round. Councillor Mel Collins. Thank you. Councillor Barrage Sira.
Approve.
Sorry, that's Councillor Tony Lukey. Councillor Samia Chowdhury.
4.
Councillor Guy Lambert.
4.
Councillor Richard Foote. Okay, Councillor Rajwinder Sidhu.
Approve.
Councillor Ahmed Guru.
4.
Councillor John Todd.
Against.
Thank you. And I'll be voting for this. Okay. Got that? That is carried. So the approval has been given that there were 6 for, 3 against and 1 abstention. Okay, so thank you. Just to let you know, there will be a short comfort break for those who are staying and a short, so to also help people leave. Okay, thank you very much. You can certainly move the suspension of standing orders, Councillor Mel Collins. That's fantastic. Can I have a seconder before that, please? Thank you. I've spotted, yeah, Guy Lambert. That's fine. Thank you very much indeed. can I have the committee back, please? Thank you. While you're getting yourselves together, just to say, the minutes of the previous meeting are not available yet because there was only 2 days between the end of that meeting and the agenda going out. So we're going to do both of those minutes. Both of the minutes of the June meetings will be taken in July. Okay, in the July meeting. I'll answer that one later, Richard. Okay. Okay. Right. Now, planning application, Clements Court, Green Lane, Hounslow, pages 24 to 93. And there's an addendum for this on page 2 and 3 of your addendum. Okay, I'm going to move straight over to no, I'm not.
Kiri.
Kiri, sorry. Moving over to Kiri, please. Yes, if you could take us through the report, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, so this is an application for development at Clements Court, which is an existing council housing estate. The proposal is for 74 new homes for social rent. It's a 100% affordable housing scheme, and it's been submitted by the council's housing team. So the site is located to the east of Green Lane. The existing estate comprises a 13-storey tower and 3 4-storey blocks. And there's currently 125 homes on the existing estate, parking and landscaping. The site is surrounded by open land to the east, as you can see behind on the site there. There's greenbelt to the south, there's industrial properties to the west of Green Lane and to the southeast of the site, and there's residential properties to the north. The application proposes the demolition of existing garage blocks and the erection of 4 new buildings ranging between 4 and 7 stories in height, providing a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom homes. There's 123 parking spaces proposed across the site, including 11 blue badges. These will be mainly located along the west of the site, sort of parallel to Green Lane. The whole site would be re-landscaped and provide improved communal amenity space. So there's blocks A1 and A2 in the north at the top of the plan there. There's block B is on the eastern boundary at the back of the site, and block C at the southern portion of the site. The proposal would achieve a 93% reduction in carbon emissions over the relevant building regulations, and it's a fully electric solution using solar panels and air source heat pumps. Overall, the proposal is considered to be highly sustainable. It's 100% affordable housing, and it's designed to provide good quality new homes. Therefore, we are recommending it for approval subject to conditions and a legal agreement. And the addendum you referred to just corrects a typo in the report, adds an informative and amends some of the conditions.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Mel Collins.
Thank you, Chair. Got 2 very quick questions. Could you tell us, please, the distance between each block, and would it eliminate, as far as possible, overlooking? And at the previous meeting, we had a similar proposal to this one. Can I just ask whether there are any of these flats specifically designated for people with disabilities?
Sorry, I'm just finding the numbers. So there are there'll be 7 wheelchair accessible homes proposed as part of this. So that's 10% of what's being proposed. So it's 74 homes, and 7 of them would be built to be fully wheelchair adaptable, and they would have blue badge parking space. And I will just find the information in terms of the separation distances for you too. So there's varying degrees of separation as you can see. So block C at the southern end of the site. So that's about 11 metres from the southern elevation of numbers 79 to 94, which is the existing block just to the north of it. And it's about 15 metres from the other block that you see in front of it. And it has been designed to ensure that there is no overlooking. The relationships have been designed appropriately. And then in terms of the blocks above, blocks A1, A2, and block B, they're obviously closest to each other. And they are located 13 metres and 14 metres from the existing tower and the other existing blocks. So yes, we think there's suitable privacy built in.
Thank you. Supplementary, Councillor Collins? Okay, thank you. Councillor Guy Lambert?
Thames Water says it's going to be smelly. Have you? I don't see that addressed in the document. So perhaps you could explain how you're going to deal with it being smelly.
Sorry, smelly. Did you say there's a reference in the document to it being smelly?
Page 36.
I've objected on the grounds that it's next to a sewage pumping station, and I can't actually see where that is. I have had a look and I can't find it, but yeah. So that's a specific objection which doesn't seem to have been dealt with. .8 is the objection.
Yes, so that's to do with Thames Water, and they've recommended informatives and conditions that we have attached. So that would suitably deal with that.
So does the informatives, they address that objection to it? Why is it an objection then if they're recommending informatives? So it doesn't make sense to me.
Is that objection from Thames Water? Is it an objection that from someone else and Thames Water is suggesting a solution to that? Which way round is it?
I believe that the comment is relating to the comments from Thames Water. I think it's the way it's worded is slightly misleading. I think that they're essentially saying that they are recommending the conditions and informatives that they have in order to ensure that there would be no objection.
It's a bit tortuous, isn't it?
So if I can step in, it's not unusual for Thames Water to suggest informatives, particularly in relation to water pressure, to sewerage, and it's because the way they have to do it like that because it's a different regime. They're not required through the planning. We wouldn't ask for details of the way that they're going to drain the site or the water pressure that the future occupiers would have as part of the planning application. But Thames Water get notified of all these applications so that they can add them to their pipeline of development. So that we put informatives on the application in the case of any approval to alert the developer to be in contact with Thames Water to sort those issues out prior to start on site, so that Thames Water don't then get overcome with objections from from future residents saying we don't have good water pressure and the sewerage isn't done properly. So it's the Thames Water engagement is usually part of the building control process, and that's where those issues of drainage and so on are managed.
Any other questions? Councillor Tony Lukey?
Yeah, page 32, 4.13. Why so many smaller units? Where are the family size units that we would we apparently constantly told we're missing?
Yeah, so we count 2-bedroom, 4-person houses as family size units in the local plan. So there would be 36% of this application would provide family size units using that definition. The reason that on this scheme we find it acceptable just to have a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units is because of the air and noise environment in this location. And that's why the buildings are also designed with winter gardens. So also given that across the site, there would be about a mix of property size, we find it acceptable in this instance. As we said, there are some family homes because the 2 bedroom, 4 person homes are family homes.
Okay, no more questions. Right, debate. Councillor John Todd.
Yeah, I find this an excellent scheme, and I'd like to recommend approval, Chair.
Thank you. It's seconded by Councillor Mel Collins. Is there any debate? Doesn't look like it. Okay, so let's move to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Sorry, that is everybody. So that is approved. Don't need me to go round, do you, Wendy? No, thank you. Okay. All right, let's move on then to 5, Rose Gardens, Feltham, pages 94 to 155, and pages on the addendum, page 4. Okay. Kiri again?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So this is another application on one of the council's housing estates made by the housing team. It's a proposal for 42 new homes for social rent. So again, it's a 100% affordable housing scheme. So this is the existing estate you can see outlined in red, just located off the High Street in Feltham. The existing estate comprises 3 4-storey blocks and 2 2-storey blocks, providing a total of 73 homes, of which 55 are general needs accommodation and 17 were sheltered accommodation, but they are no longer required. The tenants have already been rehoused. So it is those blocks containing the 17 homes which would be demolished. And the application proposes to erect 3 new buildings ranging between 2 and 6 stories, as you can see on there. And these would provide a mix of 1, 2, 3 and 4 bedroom homes. There'd be 48 parking spaces proposed across the site, which would include 5 blue badge bays. And again, the whole site would be re-landscaped, providing improved communal amenity space and access to the local open space that's at the southern of the site there. It's currently fenced off. So this would improve that and allow access for all residents. So Block A is in the western corner, as you see it there. Block B and then Block C are towards the front of the site near the main road. And a new play area would be created in the centre of the site there, that green space you see. This proposal would achieve a 94% reduction in carbon emissions and again is fully electric. So this would provide an uplift of 25 homes. So it's 42 in total proposed, but obviously replacing 17, bring them up to standard and providing a better mix of accommodation. So it's highly sustainable, well designed, and will provide good quality, 100% affordable housing. So again, we're recommending approval with conditions and a legal agreement.
Okay, questions of the officer, please. Let me have a look. Yes, Richard Foote.
Yeah, can I just ask if we, in a mixed site like this, we've got, if I remember rightly, these are 3 or 4-storey, the existing blocks that are there. But have we considered, when we're looking at our carbon efficiency, have we looked at being able to utilise access to heat pumps to be able to move that into the existing buildings as well?
So as part of this planning application, that doesn't form part of this, because as part of this planning application, you're only looking at the carbon emissions of the new buildings that you are building. However, there would be nothing to stop the housing team looking at upgrading existing stock. But that's not part of the current proposal. The current proposal is just for the new blocks.
I appreciate that. What I'm saying is that if we are doing that work, is it possible somewhere down there, you know, we all work for the same people, you know, our housing department and planning, etc. So is there somewhere that can come together to say, look, we're going to be doing this heat pumps? I don't know, was it mean drilling holes in the ground or air pumps? I'm never quite sure. But is it a possibility that whilst we're at it, that we can step up the carbon footprint of the entire estate?
Sounds like you need to be lobbying the cabinet member for housing for that. Councillor Lily Varth, I think, I suggest that you, that's what you do. I don't think you can ask our officer to do that. I think that's a bit inappropriate. But
I'm just asking the technical people first before I go and bang on Lily's door.
Go and bang on Lily's door, I would suggest.
Well, she'll tell me to refer me back to the technical people.
No, it's a jolly good idea. Why not? I think it's an excellent suggestion, Councillor Richard Foote. Any other questions, please, of the officers? Looking round. Doesn't appear to be any questions. So, okay, debate, comments. Councillor Mel Collins, you want to move approval? Thank you. And yes,
Just a question, one question last. Where's the main road on that?
So the main road is on the edge of the picture where the cursor is now. So it's the white piece just in front of the trees. That's the high street.
There are a parade of shops on there in the corner.
Not at this point, no. So there's a parade of shops further south. There's a small parade of shops, and to the north, that's where Manor Retail Park is, just next to Block C. So that's where Pets at Home, etc. are.
If you come into the traffic lights at that area there where the shops are,
yes,
the shops are on, if you're facing it, the shops are on the left-hand side of the traffic lights, and this development is on the right-hand side. Yeah.
Yes.
okay, Councillor Sidhu.
Thank you.
Okay, right. I have approval on the moved on the table, and Councillor Samir Chowdhury would like to second that. Okay, so let me have a look. I'll put that to everybody. Can I just see that all those in favour, please? Again, that's all. Thank you very much. So thank you very much indeed, everybody. And thank the officers, as ever, for their diligence. Okay. Other planning matters, there is no other business which I consider urgent. The date of the next meeting is the 8th of July, 2021. Councillor Foote. Not 22, 21.
Sorry.
The date of the next meeting is the 8th of July. Okay. And thank you all very much indeed for your attendance, and I'll see you then. And thank you all for watching. Good night.